Welcome to Firearms of America. Today I am making this video because I have been requested so many times to make this video. So let's do this. In today's video I'm gonna show you how to become the most accurate shooter that you can possibly become. And in this video we will discuss a couple of things. First of all, we will discuss the grip for the proper recoil management. We will talk about the trigger and we will talk about the sights. The three things that will be necessary for you to be as accurate as you can. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer. This video is based on the competition shooting techniques where accuracy matters as much as possible. The goal of the competition shooting is to score as many points as you can. So this is not exactly a tactical shooting, because tactical shooting does not have to do as much with the accuracy, although accuracy is still important, but more with the speed. Okay, so let's get into the video. This is not a review. This time this is the instructional. I don't do instructional videos, so yes, because of so many requests, well, let's do it. I'm gonna be using my Glock 17 for the purposes of making this video, and there is nothing in it. So the very first thing that I wanted to start, obviously the grip. We're gonna start with grip, and the very first thing I wanted to start in this video whenever we talk about the grip of the gun is that don't listen to the internet. There's a lot of garbage on the internet. There's a lot of misinformation, especially whenever it comes to anything related to firearms, how to handle them, how to shoot them, how to disassemble them, how to whatever, really whatever. Whenever it comes to firearms, there's a lot of misinformation, and probably the most of the misinformation that I see out there, because I have to do my own research as well, just like most of you guys do, for my channel, is whenever it comes to grip, and there seems to be a problem. People cannot agree on what grip is the best. So I wanted to start by saying there is no, well, there is a wrong grip, but most of the times there is no correct and a wrong grip. You know, for example, you probably heard a lot about people holding it in the weird positions, cupping their guns or whatever. Is this completely wrong? No, not necessarily. Depends on the situation, depends on what kind of shooter you are, depending on what you're used to. Alright, so let's throw that out of the window. Okay, so if you're one of those people that are gonna come out and say, hey, this finger doesn't belong there, well, it really depends. Unless, of course, your finger is not on the something like this, then yes, it doesn't belong there. But most of the times there is really no wrong or right. There's a lot of techniques that are out there, and people who are complaining about certain technique just are not familiar. But in this video, whenever it comes to the grip, we're going to talk about specifically the competition grip that is necessary for you to be as accurate as possible. So let's get into it. Step number one, of course, is going to be your right hand. I'm right-handed, so it's all about, it's going to be right hand. If you're left-handed, just switch it the other way around. I'm not going to try to explain the left hand. I'll just do the right. So, your right hand. All right. Grip. The very first thing that you want to get into a habit of is this part of your palm right here. It needs to be riding up the beaver tail as high up as possible. All right, as possible. I mean, just getting there, making sure that this is like pressing all the way up. But here's the thing. One thing I want you to keep in mind: you don't want your skin to ride over the beaver tail. And in the Glock, that's one reason I like Glocks, the beaver tail is very, very decent size. But there are a lot of guns out there that don't have as pronounced beaver tail. So a lot of times when you go all the way up, a little part of the skin can ride over that beaver tail, and you want to watch out for those. I'd be careful with those, because obviously you have your slide going backwards and you don't want to get this part hurt, because I mean, for a lot of reasons, you don't want to hurt yourself, right? But the most important reason is that if you are in a situation where accuracy matters and speed matters, and you just shot your first shot or second shot or whatever, and you damaged your hand over here, well, now you have a problem. Well, first of all, it might shock you if it accidentally crashes into your palm or whatever, but keep in mind, don't you know, that skin, don't let it go over. Another reason why I like Glocks, and for example 1911s, they have an excellent beaver tail. You can ride it all the way up. But this is what you want. You want to go all the way up to that thing. Okay, so still talking about the right hand. Okay, the grip. The grip of the right hand. It has to be, it can be loose, but it cannot be too tight. Basically, the rule of thumb is literally a rule of thumb whenever it comes to the right hand. You want to be able to press on with your thumb enough, whatever support point you have. On Glocks, unfortunately, for the best result, for the best accuracy, your thumb will have to be riding on top of the slide release. That's why you see me in my videos most of the times. My Glocks do not lock on the last round because I have my thumb riding on that slide release. Now, again, a lot of misinformation. People will say, oh, you can't do that. Watch out for that misinformation. You can, and if you want to be as accurate as you possibly can be, in a Glock especially, you have to. Now, some obviously guns, they don't have the slide release sitting over here, it's sitting somewhere else, so you have to find some kind of support point for your thumb, and support meaning you're pressing down with your thumb. So here I'm pressing down with my thumb on that slide release. See? Down. So basically that helps you have another pressure point against the recoil. So it helps with the recoil management. That's why you saw in the threshold Glock that I made, I had the slide release completely redone and it's completely different, so it's not in the way, and you actually do have that pressure point over here open, so you can rest your thumb without worrying about your Glock not locking at the last round. Okay, so number one, riding it all the way up. Number two, your thumb pressing down, having the pressure point, pressing down on something. But with the rule of thumb, you don't want to press it too much. You don't want to have too much pressure on your thumb, because if you do, the rest of the hand becomes too tense, and you don't want that. You don't want your hand, the right hand, to be wrapped around the grip too tense. Why? Because that brings me to the trigger. Because you don't want your trigger finger to be tense. You don't want it to have this. You want it to be as loose, as workable as possible. So here's a little kind of exercise you can do. You take your pistol, you ride up all the way up, you put your thumb, your pressure point here, right? And then you squeeze your hand around the grip, and then you try to mess. If you can't do this, you see, I can do this, no problem. So if you can do this, then your grip is not too tight. Maybe try getting it tighter and see if you can continue doing it, alright? So now as I get tighter, okay, now my trigger finger becomes a little bit more tense. You don't want that. So you don't want it to be too tense where your trigger finger becomes immobilized, I guess that's the word. So you want to make sure your trigger finger is nice and relaxed, and for that the rest of the hand has to be in sort of relaxed state. Alright, so all the way up, thumb pressure point, fingers wrapped around nicely but not too tight, where your finger, trigger finger, can still be mobile. Okay, so now that brings me to the left hand. The left hand is the one that is gonna squeeze as hard as possible, alright? So basically you're gonna have 4 fingers wrapping around You got your thumb, you're all the way up here, right? Finger of the trigger, just because it's a demonstration. And then you're gonna have your palm resting on the open part of the grip, and then the rest of the fingers wrapping around as hard as you can, with the thumb going underneath the other thumb. So this thumb is resting on the slide release, and this thumb, you want to find another pressure point for this thumb, and that's why you see on my threshold I have stippling over here, because that gives me, right now I don't really have it, it's just smooth, but that stippling gives me additional pressure point to have a better recoil management. All right, so this hand wraps around as hard, squeezes as hard as you can, so you're pressing in. As you can see, it like left a mark from this. That's how hard I'm squeezing. I'm squeezing it, and I'm holding it as hard as you get. So this hand, basically, to give you kind of a perspective, this is relaxed. This is squeezing as hard as possible. Same thing, thumb, pressure point, but a nice relaxed pressure point here. This thumb, as hard of a pressure point as you can. If you have gas pedal, fantastic. Not a lot of guns with a gas pedal, but at least you want some stippling over here to have additional pressure point, because it helps. Now, I've seen a lot of competition shooters go like this in a smaller compact when there is not enough of a grip. This is Glock 17, so you have all this. Plenty of space to have a proper grip here. But if it's a little too short, you can always go like this. Serrations on the front help. It's fine. Depending on what kind of gun it is, you can play around. Nothing wrong with this. But this is what you basically have. Pressure point thumb here, pressure point thumb here. This hand is relaxed. This hand is squeezing as hard as you can. And as you can see, my finger, my trigger finger, is still nice and relaxed, and I can do all this work without moving anything. Alright, that brings me to another point. Whenever it comes to the trigger, moving stuff around. If you noticed, a lot of shooters, whether experienced or not, they have tendency to shoot when they're aiming at the target, right? So this is the target. They shoot a little bit to the left and a little bit down. And that seems to be the pattern with the groups that they're shooting. Why does that happen? Well, that happens when you have your right hand a little bit too tense. So your trigger finger is not relaxed enough. It's tense. So whenever you press it, you don't just press it, you press it and you press it down. So you have this movement. And usually what I do whenever I help people with their accuracy shooting, what I do is I tell them to turn around, I take out the magazine, I fake load one round, so I don't put nothing in the magazine, it's still empty, but I say, alright, I'm putting one round in, alright, got one round in the chamber, I'll put the gun down on the range and I say, alright, so there's one round in the chamber, I want you to pick it up, I want you to, with a proper grip, and I want you to fire that round. All while I'm recording from the side, right? I'm recording them from the side, their gun, their positioning. So they think that there is a round, so they take it, they're careful with the gun, they know that there's one round in there. They extend, and then you can see that happening there. And then they're like, oh, there's no round. And then I showed them the video replay of what they did, dipping that down, and that comes, there are two reasons why that happens. One is that the trigger finger is not relaxed enough, it's too tense, so when you press it, it's a little too much of that pressure and it dips it. And number two is the expectation of the recoil. You can't expect the recoil. If you're expecting the recoil, if that's what you're concentrating, you will automatically dip the gun down in the expectation of recoil to kind of counter that recoil, and you can't do that. When you are firing your gun, this is what you have to be. You have your gun on target. Absolutely no movement. And I recommend always practicing that. Dry firing your gun, put a little target. I have a little seal on my FFL certificate over there, so I use that. I use that as a target. You get on it and you look at your concentrate on your sights, and then you press the trigger. You break the trigger, and then you see. You pay attention. You pay very close attention to the sights to make sure that they did not move a bit. And the more you practice it, the steadier you get. And then the same thing on the, obviously on the range, you will have to do with the round in the chamber. You want to make sure that there's absolutely no movement when you are pressing that trigger. And that brings me to the third, whatever, criteria, whatever you want to call it. It's the sights. It's the proper sight alignment. Again, this is another area where there's going to be a really big difference between competition shooting and tactical shooting. Because whenever it comes to the competition shooting, you are focusing on the accuracy. With the tactical shooting, you're not focusing that much on the accuracy. As long as you're hitting your target, you don't really care you're hitting the right lung or the left lung or whatever you're hitting, as long as you're hitting. Alright, so there's a big difference there. Competition shooting, sights. Whenever you're aligning the sights, that's what you want to do, all right? You're not focusing on the target. You don't see the target, well, you see the target, but it appears extremely blurry. Why? Because all your concentration is in the sides. You see the front sight clearly as day, aligning perfectly in the middle of the two rear sights, in between the two rear sights, because it's a 3 dot. In this case, well, it's Glock, so it's not exactly 3 dot, it's you get the point. And then you align the height just perfectly so that the front sight, I mean, you know how to align the sights, right? Perfectly in the center, perfectly aligned at the back, right? And you see on the camera right now the back, the rear sight appears blurry. Whenever you're looking at it like this, it will appear clear, nice and clear. The only thing that will appear blurry is going to be your target. And the further your target is, the blurrier it will get. It's fine. It is completely fine. That is the goal of you shooting accurately, basically. Seeing your target blurry and seeing your sights nice and clear. And as long as the sights are not moving when you are pressing the trigger, you're gonna be hitting the target every single time exactly where you want to hit it. As long as you have the proper recoil management, which is all about the grip, which is all about the proper trigger, and I mean, obviously, of course, the grip, the recoil management, all that sort of stuff. But as long as you have your sights on the target, on the blurry target, yes, but on the target, you will do just fantastic. All right, so that's really it. That's really it. There is really no secret. A few things that I can tell you guys to practice on in the house to make sure that you're good, you're ready for the range day. Obviously, besides your mag release, fast loading or whatever, changing the mags, is proper grip, proper sight alignment on the target, and pressing the trigger without moving a bit. Now, to do that, to press the trigger perfectly without moving your sights a bit, would also require you to know your gun very well, to know your trigger very well. Like, for example, in this Glock, well, not in this Glock, in every Glock, all of the Glocks, they're the same, except the trigger pull is a little bit heavier and a little bit lighter on some, but the stages are all the same. You have your 3.5 about millimeter, and then you have this little thing, and then you know your trigger is gonna break, and it does. So as long as you know this trigger stages that your gun has, and you practice making sure you get all the way to the very last stage, and you're perfectly aligned on the target, you don't see the target, it's blurry, but you see your sights crystal clear, and you got your perfect grip, bam, you're gonna hit the target every single time, bullseyes, no problem. And one more thing that I wanted to mention here before I let you guys go, why all of this is so good to know is because all of these competition shooting techniques, they can be applied in tactical shooting. As long as you have that proper trigger alignment every time you draw a weapon, you have that quick mag replacement, you have a proper grip, I mean, you're gonna be a warrior with a gun. So it really does improve your skill level. But the important part is that even if you have weak hands, even if you don't have that much of a strength, which is weak, I don't know why I'm repeating this, but even if you don't have a good vision, that's the important part that I wanted to mention. If you don't have good vision, you can still be as accurate as anybody else, because most of you guys that don't have a good vision, you wear glasses. All right, so as long as you can see whatever you're looking at, as long as you can read at the extended distance to see your sights crystal clear, that's all that is, because the target is gonna appear blurry for everyone anyway. So let me know in the comments below, guys, how was my instructional video? Was it helpful to you guys? If it was, maybe you have more requests for more instructional videos, let me know in the comments below and I will try to do those as well. Like I said, I've never done an instructional video before, but I gotten plenty of requests, so here you guys go. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. If it was helpful, please consider subscribing, consider joining the membership, check out my other channels, I have plenty of those, and I'll see you guys in the next video.